debt today. If you guys have questions or anything, as always, feel free to holler. So we're just going to talk about different ways to repay debt. There's 5 that I kind of want to highlight. My general thinking in outlining them for the presentation was to talk about the ones that are going to hurt your credit the least to the ones that are going to hurt your credit the most. And we'll talk about how they affect your credit, because we talked about credit scores and reports last week. And then we're also going to touch a little bit on some tools and apps. I had to be super careful in how I presented like the helpful tools and apps. So I'll give you some ways you can Google searches, because I can't like steer you towards one product or another, especially if they could gain monetarily from that. So I will show you one program that was actually developed by one of my coworkers through Utah State's extension, and she does not benefit in the least from the program, and it's a free service. So that's why I'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to have a discussion about debt and emotion. So when you guys see or hear the word debt, how does it make you feel? What do you think? What comes across your face?
I'm scared of debt.
You're scared of debt. Okay.
I'm with you.
Scared of debt.
You want to vomit?
You want to vomit. I'm already saying that. So we want to vomit. We have fear of debt. Maybe fear of going into debt, and maybe fear of getting out of it. Wonder how that's going to happen. Any other?
You feel trapped?
Feel trapped. I like that. Any others? Tired. Yeah. Okay. I feel a lot of these things. I feel like I'm falling into a black hole. Like whenever I think of this, and I just like pulled my credit report because I told you guys to go and do it, and I was like, I probably should practice what I preach. And I saw things on there that I owed, and I just was melting, and I really felt like I was drowning. And I feel a lot of times like I'm in shackles. Debt causes a lot of problems in relationships. It could be our personal relationships with ourselves. It could be a relationship with a family member, a significant other. It could even be with children. They might not understand the gravity or how hard it is to raise a family and pay for everything. So you might keep saying, I don't have money for that, I don't have money for that, I don't have money for that. And they just think, Mom is a stickler, shouldn't want to buy me anything. Why? But it's because you're feeling all of this, you just don't know how to convey that to a child. And maybe as a parent, you don't want them to know, because you want them to enjoy their childhood or be kids. So there's lots of emotions that come with debt. They've started to do research studies, and a lot of health problems are tied to money, stress, and debt. And I'm a nerd, and I think that's interesting. So, we'll touch a little bit on that. This picture, I love pictures, I love infographics, because I learn better and things stick with me better. So at the end of class, we're going to do something called a vision board as well. But I love that this is a piece. We have cards and we have little bits of knowledge, but then we have to bring that knowledge together and figure out how we can accomplish this. A couple of things, I want to touch on paying your debts first. And there's a couple of things that we have to get cleared out of the way for this to work. And sometimes when we start paying our debts first, we still have stumbling blocks or things get in the way and we're not always as successful as you want to be. This is our debt monster. One of my most favorite blogs that I read almost every day, they talk about the debt monster. And this couple that does this blog, they got married when they were pretty young. They ended up tackling about $25,000 in debt in about 2 years. And I was so fascinated by that. They call it the debt monster, and that's how I feel like it is. It's just constantly at your back. You never get away from it. If you have problems, and I'm going to talk a little bit about credit cards, but know that my line of thinking is not channeled just to that. If you have an affinity for automobiles and can't stop going to get new car loans, stop. Stop whatever it is you're doing. So stop using your credit cards. You can cut them up. You can freeze them. I have a coworker that does that, because by the time it's thawed out, she doesn't even remember what she wanted to buy anyways. And then you can also lock them up or keep them in a safe, so it's one extra step for you to go in and use it. If you have your credit cards or accounts linked up to an online shopping, and the online shopping service is kind and lets you do one-click shopping, and it makes it too easy to go in there and order and order and order, take it out. Don't let them remember it. Find out how much you owe. A lot of times we know we have debt, we feel like we're drowning, we want to vomit, we don't know exactly where we're at. So that's where pulling your credit card comes in helpful, or your credit report comes in helpful. If you have a problem swiping your cards, start transitioning a little bit into a cash only system. Granted, I'm not going to recommend that you pay like your rent or your mortgage in cash because you can't track it that well. But if it helps you to leave your cards at home and maybe carry $20 in your pocket, so if you have to buy gas or there's an emergency that comes up, you have the money there to do it, but you can't swipe and charge more, that's a strategy that helps. And that's what I do often, is because it's easy for me to lose track with credit cards or even debit cards. With cash, it's gone, it's gone. And for some reason, handing over Jeffersons is harder for me than handing over a Visa or a MasterCard. Create a spending plan. How many of you guys have a budget? Show hands. Okay. Kind of ish. So we have two that have a budget.
The question should be, do you follow the budget?
And that's what I want to know. How many have a budget, and how many of you follow the budget? Ish. Okay. Lisa was very happy to tell us she had a budget. If she follows it, is another thing. A lot of times we hate the word budget. For whatever reason, your parents said it when you were little, you just have these negative connotations associated with that. If you hate the word budget, but spending plan makes it more friendly to you, call it a spending plan. We technically all have budgets, because we all have money coming in and money going out, but are we managing that money, or is it managing us? So come up and figure out where your holes or leaks are in the system. For me, I love hamburgers, so In-N-Out and Crown Burger are my greatest weaknesses. So I just have to keep driving. But I know where they all are, and I know what exits I need to take to get there easily. So figure out where your leaks are and put your own stumbling blocks in the way so it pushes you back so you're not spending. And part of that budget, or figuring out where you're at, is do you need to increase your income? You might have jobs that you really like, but they might not help make ends meet. You might need to go out and find other income and sell things. How many of you guys have ever heard of Dave Ramsey or listened to any of his stuff? I was watching some of his videos, and he really got on this idea that if you have stuff in your house that you're not using and you're short on cash or you have debts you need to pay off, sell those items. And I think now times it's easier to sell than ever before, because you have, especially here in Utah, we have KSL classifieds, we have Craigslist. You might have friends or family members that you can sell your stuff to. So if you have items that you're not using, sell it. Even if you don't have debt, you might just think, you know what, this is a lot of stuff in my house that I'm not using, I'm going to get rid of it. So have garage sales, do exchanges, swap meets, whatever it is, but you can generate income that way. You can look for a part-time job. We are going into the holiday season, and a lot of places do hire seasonally. If you think, I could use a part-time job, but I don't know if I'm cut out to do it every single month of my life, maybe these next 2 or 3 months going into the holiday season are helpful. You generate a little extra cash, so if you do buy gifts for people, you have money there, and then you can stash the rest towards your debts and things like that. Save something. Even quarters add up. We were at a presentation one time, and this person said, well, I can't save money because what if I have to spend it? That's exactly why you should save money. And so we got into this interesting discussion, because to them, having that money go from a checking account to a savings account was too much to bear. We said, okay, fine. Even if you don't transition it over, just keep that in your account and make it so you don't spend that money for a second. Quarters add up. How many of you guys have a change jar? I love my change jars. I just have a little mason jar that's like a pint. I just took it last week, and it was full. I had $23 in change in it. And that bought my gas money to go with my friends. I was like, if I have enough money to cover gas, then I'll go play. Because it wasn't like a planned vacation. But save your change, quarters that up. If you guys have banks, a lot of times you can go and they'll count your change for free, and then you can deposit in your account or cash it out. If you're not a member of the bank that has the change counting machine, they might charge you a little bit of money. But check around. I know most banks have change machines, so you don't have to waste time. If your kids really like counting change, that might be how they earn their money. My friend's grandfather always said, if you need money, come count my change, and whatever's in there you get to keep. One time he did make a mistake because he had $1,000 in his change jar, and he was a little upset that the grandkids got it, but that was the deal. Don't add more debt. That's especially critical, especially when you're trying to get out of debt on your own, and then start paying your debt back. I love reading your guys' surveys, especially those open-ended questions, and it sounds like a lot of us have learned about finances from our own experiences, but we haven't necessarily been taught. The library has access to hundreds of books on finance. If you're needing help to find one, any of the librarians at the front can help you. Even Liesl, after class, could make some recommendations and say, hey, they're going to be in this section of the library. In Sullivan County, you can check books out for three weeks, right? And then you can usually renew them if they're not on hold. How many times?
When you have 3 renewals.
3 renewals.
Yeah,
So
as long
you
as you're
guys
not on hold.
could end up with this book for 12 weeks. Like 4 months of your life could be dedicated to whatever is your financial goal, and you can learn a lot that way. I'm going to talk about 2 different strategies to pay your debts on more. One of them is the snowball method, which I think is probably more common than the Avalanche Method, but I want to touch on both of those. The snowball method is just like when we're children and it snows outside and we go build a snowman. We start with this little tiny thing and then we just start rolling and rolling and rolling. The idea behind the snowball method is that you're going to focus on paying your debts with the smallest balance first. And the idea behind that is that you're making minimum payments on everything, and you've got everything current if it wasn't before, and then you're just going to start making those minimum payments until that smallest account is paid off. You're then going to roll whatever you had on your smallest balance, like card A, you're then going to smash that onto card B, and your snowball starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's how you can really speed up your payoff process. Dave Ramsey is a huge, huge proponent of the snowball method, so if you ever do research any of his stuff, he talks a lot about it. There's some families and just little groups that do like YouTube videos and stuff, and they're huge proponents of the snowball method as well. And here in just a second, I'm going to show you a free program online or an app on the phone you guys can use as well. One of the ideas behind the snowball method that I like is that it's very rewarding. Because once you have card A out of the way, or maybe it's a family member or a friend you owe a little bit of money to, you then take that $40 you were paying to them and you put it on to your credit card or the next person that you owe, and so you feel like you're having success. And to me that's critical, because is paying off debt fun? No, it's not. And so it's nice to have some success and some extra motivation to keep going there. If you can, and I know most of us probably live paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to find extra money to put towards your debts. But if you can pick up a part-time job, or if you can find out where leaks are in your ship of spending, you might be able to dedicate a few extra bucks. And $5 to $10 a month really makes a big difference. You might think it doesn't, but also maybe that $5 to $10 is helpful for your sanity if you want a cheeseburger. So you guys have to decide where your priorities are, but look for some extra cash. What I've done here, and I apologize that these didn't show up so good on your slides, and then we'll go into the PowerPay program and I'll show you this. But I just made up these accounts. We did a blue card, a red card, a gold card. We have an auto loan and a student loan. And then we've got our interest rates. For our snowball method, I've listed these with the smallest balance to the largest balance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through these 3 slides, and then I'll get on and actually show you the website where you guys can go in and do this with your own debts. With the PowerPay method, so what you do on this website is you go in and you enter your accounts. And then you decide, you know what, I want to try that snowball method, or paying my lowest balance off first. So if we were just to make our minimum payments, and we just trudge along making our minimum payments, our first account that's actually going to get paid off the fastest, and it's not necessarily because it had the lowest balance, but because it had one of the largest payments going to it, is this auto loan. So you can see over here, this program is just like Power Payments is just the snowball effect. They just call it Power Payments. Without Power Pay, if we were just to make our minimum payments on these debts, I believe there was $22,000 in debt there. It would take us 9 years, 5 months to pay it off. We would pay $27,500 and $6,900, almost $7,000 goes to interest. That's like a new car, like a modest car, but still a car. So that's if you're just making minimum payments. The idea being that you, 18 months, pay my cards, $235 a month, and then if I don't take that $235 and apply it to another debt, and I just keep paying $40 on my accounts, then that's how come with these numbers, that's why it would take 9 years to pay off. If you power pay it, or if you say, you know what, I'm really serious about getting my debts paid off, and I want this to be done as soon as possible, your auto loan is going to be paid off in the 18 months, and then you're going to take that $235 that was going to your car loan, put it onto your red card, and that will be paid off in 24 months. And then the gold card will be 30 months, your blue card will be 21 months, and your student loan, because it had $11,500 on it, would be 49 months. And you guys can see this, and I'll show you this. This is the payment schedule that did not show up in your notes, and I'm so sorry for that. But you can see that our blue card, if we start this next month and pay on it till July 2017, that account's going to be paid off. Our auto loan's going to be paid off in April 2017, and then the red card followed by the gold card. And you can see once one of these accounts is paid off, that money then goes to the next smallest balance, and it just keeps pummeling through until April 2018. So you just file your taxes, and then you realize, you know what? I can start paying $450 to my debt. That sounds horrible, but it's going to get you out of debt faster. And then you'll start chunking away at it, and you'll have $505 going towards that payment so that you can get done quicker. And in 4 years, does 4 years sound like a manageable amount of time to be debt free?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems doable, right? But if you're looking at it, like if you just like look at the numbers and on those credit card statements, it's so discouraging, but it's helpful that it's there. It just says if you only make the minimum payment, you're going to have this minimum payment for 20 years. That sounds horrendous. I want to be retired in 20 years. I don't want to be working my whole life. So let me go in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this website. If you have a smartphone, you can put it on your app. I know they have it compatible for iPhones. I think they're still working on it for Androids. But what this website is powerpay.org. And I am cheating. You guys can't see the screen.
I have it at the bottom of one of those slides.
Is it on there?
I don't know. On
Mine's
the
like
snowball
a-
method,
yeah.
and at the bottom it's
Just
just
like the website?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what this website looks like when you guys get in there. So it's just powerpay.org. It's a free service. You can see up here, whenever I'm dealing with like finances and stuff, I'm super hypersensitive. It is a secure website, and you can verify the security certificate by checking on that lock, and then the S is there, so that means it is secure. One of the reasons that I like PowerPay is because I don't have to enter my credit card information there. Some of the apps that I was researching would require you to go in and you would put in, I have a Discover card, I have a Visa card, I have a MasterCard, and then they want you to put your account number in so that it pulls in real life, like real-time data from the credit card companies. But to me, that's just one more source that I have to worry about getting hacked and my information could possibly be stolen. So do whatever works best for you. PowerPay, I love it because it's free and I didn't have to put in my account information. So these are just the loans that I made up. And then here, once you get your account entered in here, you'll scroll down, and so you can see, okay, total paid, 9 years, 5 months, that sounds horrible, but I guess I can do it. But then it's, what do I do next? So you're going to go to that what do I do next question right there, and click on the payment calendar. And we'll just run through a couple of things. And I'm going to talk about the Avalanche Method here in just a second, but all over the website it says the greatest savings method comes from paying the highest interest first. So that's kind of how it's got it defaulted in here. So we've got that, it's set to say highest interest first. I can come down here and there's a detailed calendar. You can download this as an Excel file, or you can print it off. If you do just like good old-fashioned paper and pencil, you can do it that way. If you're not really sure if you want to tackle the highest interest first, you could do lowest balance first. And so this is kind of where our PowerPay comes in. You can see here I've got my auto loan. It shows me with the power payments, without them, which is the screenshots I put on your notes. And then you come down here and you have your detailed calendar. So you guys can follow along and see exactly where you're at. If you don't want it in paper, this is just a free account. You'll use your email and create a password, and you guys can go in and log in at your convenience at any time. So that's kind of how that works. You can go in and make changes by just like popping back over here. And we might say, okay, what happens if, do you want to put in any credit or change your balance? It's up to you guys. Credit. Who do we want to owe money to?
Coles.
Coles. Okay. Coles gets a lot of people. How much do we owe Coles? Christmas shopping spree was fun. We thought we'd buy presents for everyone. Let's say $3,000.
Ooh.
You want to be my friend? I think so.
Yeah, I do.
We'll say that Kohl's is generous. They're only going to make us pay $70, and their interest rate is 19.9%. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, like 24.
24?
24 something.
We'll throw it on. 24.
99.
99. So let's save our creditor information. And that just bumped up our interest. Okay, so change the dynamics a little bit. Kohl's is going to take 28 months to pay off. and we'll pay them a total of $4,300. Interest paid to them is $1,300. So that awesome Christmas you had in 2015 cost you a lot of money. And you can see how detrimental it is to power pay. That's a great example. Because if we don't power pay, Kohl's is going to take 109 months to pay off. That's just shy of 10 years. So you're paying for Christmas 10 years later. Which, that sounds painful, but it happens. Okay. Let's go back to here. Is there any questions about power pay?
Could you explain that one right there one more time?
This chart?
Yeah.
So how this works is we've gone in, and because I did this just yesterday, so it's just assuming that my next month's payments are going to be in November 2015. Maybe I had due dates that were due like today and tomorrow, and so it's just like you're getting an extra payment in there. So you have your time frame here over in this far column, and then up here are the names of your creditors. I just call them blue, red, green, student loan, and auto loan, just for the purposes of the example. If we have Kohl's in there, then it would show up as a Kohl's card. These accounts or these payments up here are just your minimum payment. So you owe $35 to the red card, or $45 red card, $35 blue card, gold card is $50. Auto loan is $235, and then the student loan, your minimum payment there is $140. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to focus mostly on the auto loan for the example, okay? You can see that I'm just going through on all of these accounts and making those minimum payments until April 2017. And you can start to see that's where the shift occurs. It's because by March 2017, your car is almost paid off. You only owe $35.11 left. Where does that money go? The money is then going to go to the next smallest balance. And in our case, it was the blue card. So they've taken $235 there. They only needed $35 to pay off the rest of the loan. That extra $199 got bumped over here to pay on the blue card. And then you can see April is a portion of my old auto loan payment, still with my minimum payment. And by May of 2017, because the auto loan is paid off in full, you can then apply this $35 plus the $235. So you're then going to pay $270 to that account. You'll do that 2 months there, and then that account's going to be paid off 2 months later in July 2017. Where's my next smallest balance? It looks like the red card, and so then you've gone over and applied a portion of that $270 plus the $45 here to get $224, and then you can pay the $315 and follow through like that. And that's how the chart kind of just goes through. And that's how down here, near the end of this, once all of your other debts are paid off, that $505, which used to be spread out to like 5 accounts, it's now channeled just to that one account, and you can really start hacking away at this. Student loans, they set you up on a minimum payment plan for 10-year repayment. If you do just these simple steps, it's not anything magic, you're just making the minimum payments, and after one card's paid off, you throw it onto another account, you're going to be able to pay that off in 4 years. And that's going to save you on your student loan, I think it saves $2,000 of interest. Which, when we pay interest over a long term, sometimes in our minds we think that's not a big deal, but when you see it as a huge number, it adds up and it is huge. How many of you would like $2,500 to put towards a retirement account? It'd be huge. What about like a 529 savings plan for kids, or $25 or $2,500 could probably buy a cool trip. You could go all over South America, you could go over to Europe. So we need to start changing just how we think about things. The Avalanche Method is another way of paying off, and if you're mathematically minded or really analytical, you might love this way. I'm kind of a simple-minded person, and I want to see some success and have a reward, so I love the snowball. But one way is not better than the other, it's just whatever's best for you. The Avalanche means that you're going to focus on paying the highest interest rate first. So on our example, our highest interest rate, I believe, is a red card. So we would focus more of our attentions to paying on that, and then once red card is paid off, we go to the next highest interest rate. Mathematically, this one does save you more money, and I'll show you that graph in just a second here. So rather than order them by smallest balance, I've ordered them by highest interest rate. For purposes of our example, when we threw Kohl's on there with the almost 25% interest rate, Kohl's would then be our primary focus. So you just go along making your minimum payments when one of those balances is paid off, you're then going to focus and pay that extra money on there. With the Avalanche Method, you guys, and if you remember the snowball chart, you think, Shauna, what's the big deal? You pay them off both in 4 years and 1 month. I'm going to show you on this next graph why that's critical. This is kind of how it works. Our gold card had our highest interest rate, followed by the blue, the red. So they order things by way of interest rate up here if you decide you want to focus on that. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. You can see here, you can compare the number of payments. So top one is our highest interest or our Avalanche Method. Bottom one is the snowball method. So your lowest balance and just keeps rolling down the mountain like a big snowball. On this one, the auto loan gets paid off at the same time, 18 months, 18 months. And then you can start to see this is where the numbers change down in here. If you focus on the highest interest rates first, even though you're paying it off the exact same time, focusing on the highest interest rates first, in our example, ends up saving you $22.94 because your creditors weren't able to tack on extra interest on one of these loans. And I'm thinking it was our gold or blue card that was the most critical to get done first, our gold card. And so that's just another way or a strategy for you guys to pay off your debts. There's not a magic way, unfortunately, to get out of debt, and it does take time, and you just have to be patient. With all of these strategies that we'll talk about, there are potential setbacks or things to be aware of. Paying on your own, if you don't change, and you're going to see on all of these potential setback slides that I've done, I always talk about your failure to change spending habits. I might have the best fail-proof system to pay off my debts, but if I can't stay out of Kohl's, or if I can't stay out of Target, and I keep opening new credit cards, then none of the strategies are going to help. You really have got to look at this and change your spending habits. New debt can set your plan off, unexpected expenses, if you have a job loss or a family emergency, you might have a medical emergency or something like that. So kind of the potential setbacks here are those unexpected things that just happen to be called life. So keep an eye out that way. That's kind of how you can do it on your own. I'm going to talk about, throughout these, talking to credit counselors. In the Salt Lake Valley, you do have access to credit counselors free of charge. I have agencies that I do love, but I can't recommend one to you over the other. Call 211 and say, I need to talk to a free credit counselor. They can give you the names of the top agencies in the Valley. You can set up a phone appointment, you can go in and talk to them in person, and they can help you come up with a plan. And it's helpful sometimes to have that extra cheerleader in your court, because sometimes it does get discouraging. The next things that we're going to talk about all involve third parties, or having people come in and help you a little bit. It's critical, and I can't say it enough, that you guys do your homework. I want you to look up reviews and complaints before you do business with anybody. If you have an experience with a debt repayment person or a company, go in and write reviews, because people go in and read those, and it can help somebody make a better decision as a consumer. You're going to want to check the Federal Trade Commission and search for debt relief or credit counseling companies. SaveAndInvest.org is actually the site that is sponsored by FINRA, who is our grant sponsor. They have tons of helpful tips on credit and debt and how to repay things back. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and Protection Bureau, they have a bunch of information on there. So all of these sites on here allow you guys to go in and check agencies out. If you decide, and we'll talk about bankruptcy, if you decide you want to file bankruptcy and that's your best option in your situation as it stands today, make sure you go onto your State Bar Association's website and get information about the attorney that you want to work with. And check out to make sure that that attorney is actually licensed and reputable. The first method that you guys can use to get a little bit of extra help is called a debt management plan. Debt management plans, what they do is you go to a debt management company, and to get the plan set up, they are going to charge you a fee. The fees for debt management plans, I might call them DMPs, that's just the acronym for them, are regulated by the state. In the state of Utah, when I used to work for one of these companies, we could charge $10 per account with a cap of $50. So if you had 3 accounts on the plan you wanted to set up, it would be a $30 a month fee. Well, that is one of the cautions or things to watch out for, because you guys saw in our snowball method, that $30 going to an extra payment is going to make it be more helpful to you, So that's why you want to watch out on these things. With the debt management plan, if you've tried paying your debts off on your own and you just can't do it for whatever reason, maybe the interest rates are eating you alive, or you keep trying but things come up and you can't change it, with your debt management plans, these companies come in, They go and contact your creditors, they lower the interest rates, and then you're going to send your monthly payment to the debt management plan company, and they are responsible to divide that up and get it out to your creditors. With debt management plans, the accounts have to be paid off within 5 years. So if you're looking for a clear time shot, you want some extra help, they're not always bad, but just be aware that they do charge fees. There's usually a monthly fee involved and then just an initial setup fee. The setup fee in the state of Utah also used to be $50. So you could end up paying that first month an extra $80, which arguably it helps some people. Some people are disciplined enough they can do it on their own, and that's $80 that could go to anything. You could buy your gas for a month, you could buy groceries, you could buy a trip to St. George, whatever, you know? So you kind of just have to decide. If you opt for a debt management plan, make sure that they are licensed with one of these agencies. This is like the National Federation of Credit Counselors. This is an association. All of those are associations that protect consumers, and if they're affiliated with them, they're usually a reputable company and doing what they're supposed to. Just to watch you're not taking advantage that way. One of the warnings or cautions with the debt management plan is that your accounts need to be closed. I'm going to go on to these questions, and I won't read all of these, but these are questions and things to think about. As a whole, being on the debt management plan doesn't hurt your credit score. But remember how last week we talked about the length and the age of your accounts? If you've had an account open since college, and you've had that account open for 25 years, and now you're putting it on a debt management plan, closing that account has significantly reduced the average age on your credit report, so that could lower your credit score just because you don't have accounts on there anymore that are considered old. So an actual repayment plan like this is not going to hurt your score, but some of the actions related to it would. Does anyone have questions about debt management plans? Okay. Potential downsides, I've kind of talked about those. Failure to change your habits could lead to future failure. You might have a bunch of accounts on a debt management plan, and then maybe your significant other, or wife or husband, goes and opens a bunch more accounts that you have access to, and you start racking up more debt that's not on the plan, so it's kind of this never-ending spiral. Consolidation loans or balance transfers are another strategy that you guys can use. A lot of times major credit card companies advertise balance transfer options at 0% interest. If you decide we are tired of this debt, we're tired of paying 25% on the credit card, and want to be done with this, you might balance transfer. But if you balance transfer, make sure that you're checking to see if they charge you any fees. Sometimes, usually on balance transfers, they charge you 2 to 3% of your total debt. Well, if you have $3,000 on an account and they charge you 3%, you just socked over $300 to get that balance transferred over at 0% interest. That might be your monthly payments for 4 or 5 months, if all you can afford to make is a minimum payment of $70. So make sure you watch that way. With consolidation loans or balance transfers as well, sometimes there's a loan origination fee. You might opt to go to a bank, and they'll have a consolidation loan, and you throw all 6 of your credit cards in there, and then you just have to worry about making one monthly payment, which is really nice. But if they charge you a percentage of that total debt, or if they charge you $300 or $400 to start the loan, you have to kind of weigh out, is this really worth it to me? And then another thing to be aware of, avoid making your unsecured debt secured. A lot of times if we've had homes or even title loans on cars, we think, I have this asset, I can leverage this asset, or I can use this to get a loan and pay off these other debts. Well, what happens if you don't pay a credit card? You get collection calls, it hurts your credit. There's not a whole lot that they can really go in and do besides take a judgment out and then get a garnishment, and then they would just garnish your wages until it's paid back. But if you don't pay back on a credit card, you're not going to lose your house, you're not going to lose your vehicle. If you use a consolidation loan, like a home equity line of credit or some kind of a title loan, and you tie your car to it, or your truck, or your house, if you miss payments on that, they could then go in and take that car. So then you're left without a car, and you have all these debts that you didn't pay off, and you're kind of up the creek because you don't know how you're going to make it to work anymore. So just be very cautious if you decide to do this, that you're not making unsecured debts like credit cards secured through home equity lines of credit or something like that. And then also this one is, you're paying debt with debt, but it's supposed to make payment easier because you only have one payment. Types of consolidation loans, there's many out there. You can do your balance transfers, you can do unsecured loans at your bank. If you have a lot of student loans, There are companies that will go in and consolidate those for you. You might be able, if you have a family member who is well off or is able to help you, they might even be able to loan you the money. Just be cautious with that you don't damage your relationship and that you set up some kind of an agreement so if you fall behind, they have something they can do and you can get back current on it that way. And then we've been talking about lending circles and peer-to-peer circles. Those are when you kind of pool your money and everybody helps each other out. What could go wrong with consolidation? You could lose your assets as collateral. It might take a long time to pay it off. Consolidation loans, I was looking at one and it was a 10-year payoff. So it was, do I want to do a one-time payment here? Or do I want to just make sure you don't have minimum payments in and power pay it and be done in 4 years? So just watch that way and decide what's best for you and your family. Bankruptcy is a legal action, and if you are just feel like you're drowning in debt, you're going into that black hole and nothing is ever happening or changing for you, this might be an option. It should be one of the last options, but it is something that you can do. There's two types of personal bankruptcy. There's Chapter 7, which is your total liquidation of your debts. So you go in, you file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the attorney helps you go through that process, and I'll show you the steps for the bankruptcy in just a second so you don't have to worry about memorizing them all. But your debts are discharged. When you go in and file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, if you have a house or a car or something like that, they might make you sell it to pay a portion of that towards those debts, and then essentially you just walk away and your debts are gone. This is going to be the most damaging on your credit. It's going to stay on your credit report for 10 years. However, usually at year 2, 3, and 4, you can go in and get a secured credit card or a very, very small personal loan, and you can start rebuilding your credit. So this will follow you for 10 years, but from there, then the debts are gone. If you want to work for government agencies or certain jobs, if you have bankruptcy on there, you won't get hired. Just plain and simple. So that is something to keep in mind. You might think, I love my job, I'm not ever going to leave. And then in 2 or 3 years, this awesome opportunity comes up, you're going to double your income. But if you've got the bankruptcy on there, you might not be able to get hired. So that's something to be aware of that way. And this is a legal proceeding, so there's a lot of things that go into it. There are also fees that you will have to pay, so you'll want to shop around. And that's where the State Bar Association in Utah comes in handy, because it can help you know what is an average fee and what's a fair price to pay for this. Chapter 13, bankruptcy. They're usually going to use this if you have a steady source of income coming in. And this allows you to set up a payment plan. So within 3 to 5 years, you get your debts paid off, or at least a portion of the debts. There's some debts that you don't make payments on anymore. But you'll get your plan set up as soon as you complete your payment plan. Then they call it the discharge. Discharge just means the forgiveness of your debts, or legal forgiveness of debts. So those are eliminated. Your Chapter 13 bankruptcy, because there is a payment plan with it, is only going to stay on your credit report for 7 years. So that's just like a traditional negative item, or a missed payment will stay on there for 7 years. Same thing with the bankruptcy. Just keep in mind that just like Chapter 7, you might not be able to get certain jobs if you file the bankruptcy. This is the bankruptcy process. It is, on paper, it looks nice and tight and packaged, but it does sometimes take a little bit of time. You'll have to go find an attorney. You'll prepare all your documentation, and that attorney will help you. You can try and file bankruptcy on your own. The State Bar website has directions and all the paperwork that you would fill out if that's an option you're thinking about considering. Just make sure that you really stay on top of it and are following up with everything. They do require you to take a credit counseling, like a financial management class, before and after the bankruptcy. But once you've got all your paperwork done with the attorney, you'll go in and file. You'll go to your bankruptcy hearing and appear before the judge with your attorney by you, and then you'll complete a second part of your counseling, and then essentially you're just waiting for the discharge of your debts. If you're Chapter 13, you're obviously going to be making payments to those. If it's Chapter 7, you've sold your assets, liquidated the things that you could sell to pay towards certain debts, and then you go on from there. It's also important to remember that certain debts do not get forgiven. Student loans very rarely are forgiven in bankruptcy. Back child support and alimony are also very rarely forgiven, and back taxes are very rarely forgiven, if never. The government's always going to find a way to get the money from you. So just keep in mind that if you've got a student loan that you're really worried about, and you think bankruptcy is my way out of this because I hate this loan, chances are you're still going to get stuck paying for it, and now you've got a bankruptcy to deal with as well. These are questions you should ask yourself when you're considering bankruptcy. Are there other options out there? Do I have so many creditors I don't even know what's going on? And I would really strongly encourage you before filing to go talk to a financial counselor, just somebody who can look over your situation and help you. When I was working as a financial counselor, there were times that for families that was their best option. And they had come to us and they'd weighed all of their choices, and then just on paper in the numbers it didn't make sense, and other than to file the bankruptcy. So it was a hard decision for them, and it takes an emotional toll on individuals and families. There's just lots of emotions that go in with the bankruptcy, but it's tough. It's hard. Things to consider. Once again, I'm just harping on cheating habits. 60% of bankruptcy filers are repeat filers. So they'll get their debts all forgiven and they're flying high and things are going well, and then they fall into those same spending patterns and traps. So just be cautious that way. And then go speak to a credit counselor for free. I really stress the free part because there are certified financial counselors who are very well trained and licensed who can provide those services for free. So don't ever pay to talk to a financial counselor. Now, financial counselors are different than planners, and I should note that. Your financial counselors are usually, I always think of it this way. Your financial counselors are going to help you iron out the wrinkles in your finances so that you're ready to go talk to a financial planner who's one that can help you with like your estate, your retirement, and all of that, like asset accumulation and things like that. So financial planners do have some fees attached that way. We'll talk about that in our investing class. Debt settlement, and this is on the end of the chart, and on the FINRA website, it said do not pursue debt settlement. At all costs, avoid this. I wanted to make you aware that it is an option. It's not one that I'm fond of. What happens with debt settlement is these companies are usually for-profit agencies. A lot of times they'll make promises they can't keep. So what they're going to do is they're going to go and say, Eric, stop making payments on all your accounts. And you think, that doesn't make sound financial sense. Oh, don't worry about it, Eric. You're going to stop making your payments. And then you're going to say, whatever you would put on those minimum payments in this special savings account here, you're going to make that payment for 36 months. And then when your creditors are so mad at you that you're not paying, then we'll go in and negotiate for pennies on the dollar. Very rarely does that work because your creditors don't want to wait 3 years for their payments. Your interest rates have gone up. You're getting assessed late fees and over the limit fees usually. And then a lot of times your creditors will just go in and they'll close the accounts, they'll write it off as a loss, or remember they charge it off, and then they'll send it to collections. So not only do you have to worry about an original creditor, but you've got collection agencies involved in there, and your original creditors might go in and try and pass judgments and get garnishments against you. Some people, for whatever reason, they think this is a good option for them. If you did decide to check into this, just make sure that you're very, very cautious about how you do it. If you have collection accounts, rather than pay a settlement agency, you can negotiate just as well with them. We talked about last week how collection agencies usually pick up stuff for pennies on the dollar, and you can negotiate some kind of a payment. Say, I know I owe you $1,000, but would you be willing to write this off and show it paid in full if I paid $300? If they agree to that, you're freestyling, get the letter and the receipts from them and go on your way. Just beware, a lot of times, they did the United States Federation of Accountants did some research on settlement agencies, and these are the most common frauds or claims that these agencies are making. They're going to charge you a lot in upfront fees, and sometimes they won't follow through. They tell you to stop making the payments. They'll tell you that they'll stop any debt collections and lawsuits, which they can't do, because through the legal and court system, those creditors do have some protection still. So just be aware of that. And then it's very, very expensive. There's tax implications on debt settlement. And even with collection agencies, so this is something to be cautious of. If you go in and you settle a debt and don't pay it off, you settle for less than the full amount, that company might notify the IRS. Let's say it's $1,000 medical bill that went to collections, you pay $300 of it. That collection agency might contact the IRS. That $700 difference in the debt that you owed could be seen as income, and it's taxable income. So be very cautious if you're going in and you're negotiating and lower that amount, because who doesn't want $700 in extra income, but we want cash. We don't want to be charged for this debt. So just be aware that when you are negotiating, whether it's through a settlement company or on your own, they might send in paperwork that says, we forgave this debt, these people made $700 on us, and you're thinking, no, I didn't. And that $700, if it's gone to collections, maybe your original bill was only $300. And then by fees that they've assessed and interest that they've charged, that's where that extra $700 comes in. Well, they're going to charge you tax on that. So if you do negotiate something, make sure you get in writing what their policies and things are that way. There are like income limits, like you can be forgiven $200 and not be assessed income tax on it, but they change those limits every year because it's the tax law and code. So just make sure if you ever decide to do that, you find out what amount it is, so that you're not paying taxes on income you didn't actually receive. These are some helpful tools. FINRA has awesome calculators and tools on there for debt. PowerPay is the one that I showed you. CNN Money has some really cool debt-free calculators. And then Bankrate, if you just go to calculators and like debt reduction, they have some fun ones there too. The PowerPay is an app if you prefer to have it on your phone as a constant reminder, and I have a handout with instructions on how to get that. Like I mentioned, it's on for Apple. It hasn't yet been like adapted for the Droids. There are tons and tons of free apps out there. Just remember to do your research. Some apps do cost money. If you guys Google like top financial apps or top debt-free apps or debt repayment apps, you'll get a whole list that comes up, and you guys can go in and do some research that way. One thing that, as far as paying back debt is concerned, and these kind of are just things that work in my own life, and then I was doing some research and checking with some other people, but there's tons and tons of financial videos and personal finance videos on YouTube. There's 2-minute long ones, there's 25-minute long ones, whatever you want. But if you guys are ready and serious about paying off your debt or just getting ahead in life, it's nice to have that constant reminder. Because I teach finance all the time, but sometimes when I go into a store, it's so hard for me to practice what I teach. I know everything, but the application is hard. And it's just because of habits and the culture we live in. We're materialistic, we have tons and tons of stuff, and it's just at our fingertips. So it's good to watch those videos maybe once a week or once a day, or whatever it is that just kind of helps keep you motivated. There's tons of fun blogs. If you're a blogger or if you like that kind of thing, there's tons of fun blogs from real life people that have paid off thousands of dollars in debt, and they can inspire you. I have my list of favorites, and I read 3 of them every single day. But it's fun because it gives me ideas for classes, and it just helps me in my own life. And find a goal friend, not a girlfriend, but find somebody that can help keep you on track. For me, I don't even know if my friends want to be my goal friends, but I make them my goal friends. And I check in and I say, this is my goal, this is where I'm at. I sent a picture of my vision board to my friend today, and I said, guess what, buddy, you're the first one that's getting paid off. We decided that we wanted to go to Jazz games, so she bought the season tickets, and I'm paying her back on a monthly plan to do that, and she's nice enough to let me do that. So what I did is I texted her today. I had done a vision board previously, and I'm going to pass out papers if you guys want to do this. So this is my vision board. And what it is, have you guys heard of vision boards? Mm-hmm. Okay, so vision boards can be as technical or as simple as you want, and I'm actually going to go on to the next thing. If you are an artist, you can have so much fun with these vision boards. If you're like artistic but don't love drawing, get magazines or digital. You can do fun stuff online. There's tons of free like infographic sites. You can just make something. But as far as your vision board is concerned, especially when it relates to debt. So the idea behind the vision board is that you're using images to inspire you. And you want them to be in a spot you see them every day. My vision board and I taped it up because I didn't want anyone to see it. This is my PowerPay plan right here. I printed it off, and every month I make a payment and I'm on track, I highlight it because I like color and it helps motivate me. But my vision board has to do with that. So what you're going to do on your vision board, you're going to do whatever works with you. When we're making a financial vision board, you want to focus on stuff like how do you feel, but also what you want to accomplish. So these are always the 3 questions I suggest. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what is your plan for getting there? I'll share. I'm pretty open. I don't care if you guys know. My goal is to be debt-free by February of 2019. And this is how I feel right now. I'm in a sea of green water, and there's a debt monster coming to eat me, and this wave is going to attack me. I'm not an artist that looks ugly, but it works. My plan or my goal where I want to be is debt-free by 2019. You can see I'm standing on top of the debt monster, his tongue's sticking out, and I have money just to throw around. Do whatever I want with it. And then how am I going to do this? I'm going to power pay this. So I've got 7 creditors that I want to pay off. I did, my two littlest ones here are actually friends. We've spotted each other in the past. They spotted me some money. They're on the plan to get paid off first. Because I hate owing friends money. It's easier to owe company money than my friends. So they're my plan to get them paid off first, and then it's just going to roll and tumble down that mountain so I can get done. What I've done is I have markers and paper here. If you guys want to create your vision boards, there's tons of bags of markers, so you guys can just like share. I'll get you guys more markers here. And then I have papers. Some of these vision boards, as you can see, are huge. Like you could go to the dollar store and buy a tack board and stick it up that way. For me, because this has to do with debt, and I don't want everyone that walks into my house to see this, I keep this in my closet, my bedroom closet. I go in there every day to grab my shoes, to put my shoes away. I see it 2 or 3 times a day, at minimum. And it helps me to stay on track that way, and it just helps keep me motivated. So what I have done is I've just taken this. If you guys want to do this, it can be related to debt. If you don't have debt, it can be any financial goal, or it could be anything that you want to work on. And we just suggest, and there's no right or wrong way to do this, but to help me keep my columns and questions straight, I just fold it like a little, do you say hamburger? Isn't that what our elementary teachers used to tell us? You fold it like a hamburger into 3, you write your questions and you draw, or you use images. If you hate debt and want to get it paid off, I have some scissors and pictures here. I love this Monopoly card. And on the inside of my power pay chart that I stapled so you guys can't see it, I have get out of debt free from Monopoly, but then there's a cross because there's really no such thing. And that motivates me to keep going that way. So whatever it is, whatever your goals are, make sure that you set clear goals and do something that is accessible to you. Your goal might be 4 or 5 years out, but 4 or 5 years in the long run really isn't that long. So it's a mid-range goal. But yeah, be creative. If you guys want to spend some time doing your vision board, you can. We've allowed enough time for Liesl to do the drawings and kind of do the wrap-up. And after we turn the camera off, I want to kind of just get like feedback or questions that you guys still have or stuff you'd like to see in the future. And with the vision boards, there's tons of research on these as well. Athletes have used these for years, and the rest of the world is kind of catching on. The images are usually more powerful than words. So create a vision board or do whatever it is that inspires you. If your goal is to get to Ireland as soon as you pay your debts off, then do it. One thing also to remember, I talked about how quarters add up. It's always this tightrope walk. What do I do? How do I get there? As you are paying off your debts, it's always good to be able to save just a little bit of money. With the idea being that as you're paying off these debts, you can then draw on those emergency funds if necessary. You're hero of lots of stuff. Most people say you have to have 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Does that seem doable to anybody in this room? No. It doesn't seem. Straight up. Straight up, it seems impossible. But what is possible is saving $30 a month. Well, if I save $30 a month for a whole year, I have an extra $360 I didn't have at the beginning of the month. And how much do emergencies usually cost? What are emergencies? And I'm not talking about job loss. That doesn't count. We're throwing that out the door. But an emergency, what is a family emergency?
Flat tire.
Flat tire. How much does a tire cost?
Maybe 100 or
$100. So with our $1,000 emergency fund, or with our $360 emergency fund, we can then pay for our flat tire without having to put it on credit. I'm going to put brakes. We can probably put cars. I had to replace my brakes on Saturday. Was that in my plan? No. But it was something that needed to be done. And on my drive up to Logan, my brakes decided they didn't want to work. So that was $284. If I had $360 in a savings account, then my brakes are covered, my flat tire is covered. Washing machines sometimes give out. Those can usually be repaired for less than $1,000. Fridges might be a little bit more expensive, but you can usually find like a refurbished fridge or one on sale. They're always putting fridges and appliances on sale. So the idea behind this, or my argument to this is, I would say strive to work towards a $1,000 emergency fund, because most household emergencies can be covered by that. Once you have your $1,000, then you can start shooting for that 3 to 6 months. But this seems a lot more doable to me than 3 to 6 months, because I think, oh, well, how am I ever going to do that? So I just give up to begin with. So work on something small. If you save your quarters, and that's your savings plan for now, well, if you save and you can get $23 in quarters every 2 months, that's going to add up just fine. Might be an extra $250 at the end of the year. So there's little things that you guys can do, and there's tons of fun classes that we could talk about and things that way, but just make sure that you are paying off debt but also building up. Question?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part about how do you get to that $1,000?
Okay, so we were just talking about, like, I kind of did a side note because I forgot to stress it. At the beginning I said quarters count or quarters add up. So the idea here is while we're talking about paying off your debts, you also don't want to neglect being able to start saving just a little bit in emergency money so that when an emergency does happen, because it surely will, you don't have to turn back to that credit card that you just paid off. So it's small things. And so I say a true emergency fund is $1,000. That 3 to 6 months that the financial experts recommend, to me that's like living expenses. That's a higher level up here. So this could be, this $1,000 might not be attainable this year, but you might be able to dedicate $30 a month to just a savings account. Well, $30, if I did the math right, over the course of the year ends up being $260. That will cover most car repairs. You know, if your outlets go out or you don't know how to do electrical things, because I most certainly don't, I might be able to get an electrician to come out and diagnose what's wrong and pay his labor for that.
So you just keep putting that $30 a
Just
month.
keep putting that
So
$30
maybe
a month.
that $1,000 will go.
So then in like a year or two, you can get to that $1,000. Yeah. And if you pick up seasonal employment or something like that, you might be able to get that $1,000 much quicker. So you just do whatever works for you. If you guys want to tutor or something like that, there's lots of tutoring agencies that allow for flexible schedules, and you might be able to go in and pick up a few hours at $15 an hour and get paid that way. So those are just little things. But just don't give up. Review your goals often. If you need a cheerleader and you don't want to go to a financial counselor, you guys are more than welcome to shoot me an email and I can send you out blogs or anything like that. Because while I do teach this stuff, college was not kind to me and I have to pay off the student loan and some other things. So, but that's just part of life. You just get it done and you don't give up and you look at it all the time. At least I do. My parents get mad because that's all I talk to them about. But it's going to go away. It's going to go away. Debt free is just ahead. These are some other helpful websites that I do to you guys. Don't hesitate to call 211. And I'm just going to throw this out because I might not ever see some of you guys again. As we're going into tax season, if you make less than $53,000 a year, you can have your taxes prepared for free by a licensed accountant through the VITA sites. And your VITA sites are at libraries. There's VITA sites in downtown, and they'll help you file your taxes for free. Pardon?
If you made
Less than $53,000 a year. And then if you feel comfortable filing your own taxes, if you're under that, you can actually go on to the VITA website and use their software through H&R Block. It's H&R Block powered, but it's brought to you free by the VITA sites. And then you can go in and just prepare your own federal and state tax for free. So if you feel comfortable doing that, or if you do need help, don't forget around tax time and in January, I would recommend calling 211 in January, getting your VITA appointment scheduled. You might not get like your tax forms until the end of January, but the closer it gets to tax time, the more free you get. So you could get an appointment scheduled for February, take your documentation and your family size and all that stuff in. They'll file your taxes for free, they send it off, you don't have to pay them a dime, and that return that you are looking so forward to then is 100% yours.
So none of these websites are the FIDA sites?
The VITA, let me look up, just because I thought I should tell you that. This is the website where you guys can go, the utahtaxhelp.org, and you can go here. It's the Earn It, Keep It, Save It campaign, and when it is tax season, they will have an icon usually just right over here, and that's where you say file your own for free, or you can go up here. So there's the free tax preparation, free file online, volunteer now, plan and save. This is kind of a social media campaign that they do, and we all join together and talk about what we're going to do with our tax returns and cheer each other on. But file for free online when it's tax season. Click right there, you'll create your login, and it pulls it in. If you've used an H&R Block site before, a lot of times they'll have your information, and they can pull in prior tax years. And if you decide, I'm going to start using this site from now on, every year you file, it will have your old return, and it can pull that in for you. To file on your own, I've done it the last 2 or 3 years. It usually takes me about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Now that they started asking like health insurance information, I didn't have that with me at the time, so I had to go find it, put things on hold. But they'll tell you before you even file what you need to have so you can have all your paperwork with you.
So this is the feds and the state.
This does state and federal. Yep, and it's free of charge. I love this website. It's powered by a lot of nonprofits here in the state. And if you just don't feel comfortable doing your site or doing your taxes on your own because maybe you messed up in the past and you're scared they're going to come for you, go get an appointment set up and have a volunteer help you. Those volunteers are super helpful. Super rewarding experience. I worked with a writer volunteer about 4 years ago. This family came in, they weren't sure how they were going to make all these bills paid. They had some medical emergencies come up because of the earned income tax credits and some other tax credits. Their refund ended up being $9,000. And to see the elation and the joy on their face was probably one of the best things in my life. I'm being choked up about it right now, and I like to cry. So, but it's an awesome program, and if you guys just think, you know what, I know how to file taxes, I can help people out, you can also volunteer there for free as well. So, what questions do you guys have? I finished earlier on purpose. So we'll talk about questions, have time to do the drawing in.
Speaking of the tax, does TurboTax do a pretty good job of catching those things so that you get a $9,000 return if you do it?
I think they do. Yeah. H&R Block and TurboTax, like as far as that is concerned, very, very comparable. I just, by default, because this website was free and they're powered by H&R Block, I've only used H&R Block, but I have a lot of friends that use TurboTax and they've been able to find a lot of those tax credits and things that way. So, good question. And you can usually find deals and stuff on the TurboTax as well, so it's not too much. Yes.
I didn't come to any of the other previous classes, so if it's already been covered, then we'll talk
I'll
about
answer
it.
your question.
Did you talk about, my husband and I have different points of view with respect to how to spend money. Did you talk about having an allowance built into your budget?
We have not talked about that, but I mean, we could. My personal viewpoint, just from working in the field and with different families, it's usually best if you have a household budget that covers big things, your cars, your house, your utilities, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it usually works best if each person in the relationship has some kind of allowance. As a couple, you get to decide what that is.
Mm-hmm.
One of my coworkers who I admire and adore, and they have one of the healthiest relationships I've ever seen, their personal allowance is $100 a month. Each of them get $100.
Mm-hmm.
She goes to J. Crew. She gets that money first day of every month. She's at J. Crew. She looks awesome. Outfits are incredible. My coworker is the husband, and he saves and 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 saves until she's blue in the face. She's like, well, why don't you go buy this? Because like, well, I really want that, but I want to pay for it. She's like, well, you have your allowance. But to him, it's more rewarding to have some of that money tucked away. And it doesn't. Her opinion doesn't matter with regards to that money because it's his.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll tease him.
Yes,
So
but it's a designated.
It's a designated.
Okay, and now do you have any data that supports what you just said, that it usually works best if the partners have
separate money? I have seen studies. I can't tell you any off the top of my head. Tomorrow morning, first thing, I'll do some research, and if you want me your email, I'll shoot it over to you.
Okay, because we have very different perspectives.
Because we have perspectives and personalities, and you fall in love with this person, and you're like, what in the world? I love you, but not that. And so,
Yeah.
I'll get you some stuff sent over.
Okay.
And there's some fun, like, money habitudes and personality quizzes
Oh.
that we sometimes will do classes on that, because it's really helpful. Because you have these two people that have been married maybe for 30 years, but they still don't see eye to eye on certain things, and that's okay. But it's helpful to answer those questions because you gain an understanding of where they're coming from and what happened or why they think what they do. So I need some of that person.
I have a question related to what we talked about. You said that there's a lot of fraudulent advertising about credit plans or whatever. One story you sometimes hear advertised is dropping interest rates on cards or whatever. Is there a strategy that works for trying to lower interest rates on your existing accounts?
So if you want to kind of a do-it-yourself strategy, You can call your creditor, just like on their customer service line. If that customer service representative can't help you, a lot of times they can refer you to somebody like one level up. But you can say, hey, I've been with you for this long. My interest is this. What can you guys do for me? Because I know so-and-so is advertising a card at this rate, and I feel like I have fairly decent credit. So if you can't do anything to help me, let's close this account and I'll go. And it's not, could you really do that? Yeah. Is that a dishonest threat? No. And so you're saying, this is where I'm at. I've been business with you for X, Y, and Z. This is how I am as a consumer. How can you help me? And if they can't lower the interest rates for you, then you might go get another credit card and you weigh kind of the alternatives. Because you don't want to keep opening and closing, but if you don't need to buy a home or no large major purchases in the future, it might be worth it to you to get rid of that 25% interest credit card and get something at 7 to 10% through a local credit union or bank or something like that. So you can just call them up.
I just want to add, I have that very experience, sort of. I wanted to close down a particular credit card because I had an annual fee. And so I called her in order to close the credit down. And she said, well, why are you closing? I said, well, because you have an annual fee.
Right.
And she says, oh, well, I see you've been with us for 4 years. We can just eliminate the annual fee this year. But I mean, close the credit card, but it was just amazing, just like that. And that $95 was a lot of money to me.
Well, 95 is a lot. Especially when there's credit cards that don't have annual fees.
Yeah.
So yeah, just call them up. If you don't like talking on the phone, or you sometimes get a little bit like frazzled or something, it might help just to like write a script out and say, okay, this is my point. This is what I want. If they can't do it, then so yeah, you can call them up. See, I had one lower it for me because I was going to just close the account. I said, oh, send me the paperwork and writing, we'll sign on it. So, my one boss always said, you never get what you don't ask for. That's true. Just have to ask.
To learn more or to find a class, visit slcolibrary.org/smartinvesting.